Hey there guys, what's up? Ragtter here, welcoming you back to the Pokémon trading card game online. The new expansion, Fates Collide, has just released, and of course, this brings a whole slew of new cards to the table. Now, I want to sit down tonight and speculate, analyze, and predict which cards will be good in the new meta, which ones will be meta-defining, and which ones will probably see a lot of use versus which ones will not. If you want to participate in the discussion, feel free to join along with me down in the comments below. Let me know what you think of some of the more noteworthy cards. And I think this could create some real interesting thought about how the game could go from here. And if you're not that into the competitive, then let me know which card arts are your favorite, because there are a lot of good ones in here. So let's not waste any time. Let's start off with one of the more interesting cards, I think, Alakazam EX. It's got 160 HP. For a Pokemon EX, that's pretty noteworthy. Most Pokemon EXs tend to have about 170 HP. Alakazam falls a little short of that, and that might not make a huge difference, but depending on how high the damage could get in this set, not having that extra 10 HP could be problematic for Alakazam. We'll have to see. Now, it has the ability Kinesis. When you play Mega Alakazam EX from your hand to evolve this Pokemon, before it evolves, you may put 2 damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon and 3 damage counters on one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. And I think this is particularly noteworthy because of how well it synergizes with Golbat, Crobat, and Zubat, because when they evolve, you can also put damage counters on the board. Combine this with Skyfield so you can have 8 Pokemon on your bench. You can have a lot of ammo in your chamber for some really passive damage. Honestly, because of the fact that evolving Mega Alakazam EX, or evolving Alakazam EX into Mega Alakazam EX, can knock out a Joltik on the bench by itself, I think that's incredibly noteworthy, and definitely gonna shift up the meta with how Night March is played. Well, maybe not definitely, but I think it's very likely. Then you look at its attack suppression. Put 3 damage counters on each of your opponent's Pokemon that has any energy attached to it. Now, before you evolve Alakazam EX, if you combine this with the Bat's ability, you can really knock down some early offensive pressure that your opponent might be trying to build up. If they're trying to set up a Pokemon on the bench, Alakazam EX does a pretty good job of going for it and dealing some early damage with the Bats in play, and then Mega Evolving this Alakazam, you could get some knockouts without having to fire off very many attacks. It's interesting. It's very interesting. I definitely want to see how this plays out. I think, personally, that this is going to see a lot of play, but we'll have to see in time. So then we see Altaria EX. Powerful Gain. If this Pokemon was healed during this turn, this attack does 60 more damage, and heal 30 damage from this Pokemon. Shining Wind. During your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon has no weakness. So, basic Altaria EX, 170 HP, pretty standard like I was saying. I don't like the damage on Powerful Gain. 2 for 90 isn't bad, but it's conditional 2 for 90. Right? This isn't always going to be that 90 damage, and you can't guarantee that Altaria EX will be damaged, though it is looking like there is going to be a lot more passive damage floating around. So I don't know how well that ability is going to do. Shining Wind. During your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon has no weakness. 3 for 80 is not great. Compared to the 2 for 90 you could get with Powerful Gain, it's a bit inefficient. You are having to commit an extra turn to attach that energy. Getting rid of a Lightning type weakness though, that's not bad. Raikou and Mega Manectric have been dominant forces in the meta for quite a while, and Altaria does not like taking a hit from either of them. But one thing that is for fact and for true is that Raikou doesn't really care about this Altaria EX's weakness. It can usually do enough damage later in the game to knock it out even without weakness. However, Shining Wind would allow Altaria EX to take a hit from Mega Manectric EX. I don't know how much that's going to be worth in the new meta, but it can at least take one hit. But that damage on its attacks is pretty low, so we'll have to see if its Mega Evolution makes up for it. Then we have Audino EX with 180 HP, so a little bulkier than Altaria EX, with Drain Slap, heal 20 damage from this Pokemon, does a base 20 for 1 energy. Then do the Wave. This attack does 10 more damage for each of your benched Pokemon coming off a base 60. So, if you combine this with Sky Field, that's 180 damage, 140 damage, sorry, for 3 energy. That's... I don't really know if that's good or bad. It's conditionally good. But in that scenario, would you be wanting to attack with Autono EX? I guess the logic you could go with is stacking your board with a Sky Field of 4 Crobats and 4 Mega Alakazam EXs so that you've got all this passive damage out there, and then while they're on the bench, do the Wave to deal lots of damage? I don't know. Again, the damage is kind of low for these cards, or for this card and Altaria EX in particular, so I don't know how much play that's going to see, but I think it has potential. I think that could work, maybe. We'll have to see. So here, we have a Bronzong Break with 130 HP. With the attack Metal Rain for 1 Metal type and 1 colorless, discard as many Metal type energy attached to this Pokemon as you like. For each energy card discarded in this way, choose one of your opponent's Pokemon and do 30 damage to it. Don't apply weakness and resistance. You may choose the same Pokemon more than once. This is pretty devastating, in all honesty. This is a direct answer to Night March, as for 2 energy, plus any additional energy you slap onto it, and metal types are quite... They play a lot like green decks from Magic the Gathering, to put it that way. They do like to have that energy ramp, courtesy of Bronzong's pre-evolution, or Bronzong Break's pre-evolution rather, which has the ability Metal Links. So, I could definitely see this seeing a lot of play just for the sake of countering Night March. 130 HP isn't the most, but in the early game it could be enough. But by turn 3 you are going to have to be careful. On top of that though, if you have a lot of energy attached to this Metal Rain, you can just keep discarding energy until Pokemon's fainted. Is it the most cost efficient? No, but is it possibly, and if you have enough energy, very likely going to get rid of your opponent's main attack source? Oh, you can count on this Bronzong Break. I don't know how much of an impact it'll have, but I definitely predict this being an anti-Night March metal offensive deck. I think it could be very cool. Going off of Pokemon Breaks, we then have Carbink Break with Diamond Gift for 1 Fighting type energy and 20 damage. Attach 2 energy cards from your discard pile to one of your Fighting type Pokemon. Because it's a break card, this is a little slow, but that's not a bad effect in the slightest bit. Energy ramp with fighting types, you can never really have enough of it. Depending on the deck, this could fit in. It could find a home. I don't know how much of a place in the meta it has, but I think it has potential. Maybe. If that did maybe 30, then that could be a bit more... You could make a stronger case for it. Because then, with the Muscle Band, you rank it up to a base 50, and on its own it would knock out a Joltik. There's a lot that could be improved about this, but for now, it's okay. So then we have a Delphox. With 140 HP, it has the attack for 1 Flame-type energy, Flickering Flames. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now asleep for base 40. That's not bad. And then Psystorm. This attack does 20 damage times the amount of energy attached to all Pokemon in play. So, even with the energy off of Delphox alone, this is going to do 60, which is not bad. 3 colorless energy means that there's a lot of versatility here. You can attach double colorless energy to get this going. Fire types love to rearrange their energy. They love to discard it and reattach it. There's a lot that could be done here. Plus, this turns your opponent's own energy against them, and in a fire type deck, you're very likely going to have more than one Pokemon set up with fire type energy, waiting to be discarded at any point. I think this has a lot of potential to be a potential win condition. 20 damage times energy? That adds up very quickly. And it's a stage 2 Pokemon, so it gets around things like Pyroar's Intimidating Shout, or Intimidating Mane rather. It gets around... as a fire type, it gets around a lot of very common common types, like, say... Oh, never mind, it doesn't say the weakness on this card. But there are a lot of Metal-type Pokemon who won't enjoy taking this. Fire-type has always been pretty good offensively. I can't see it getting any worse. Honestly, I don't really know what to think. Although I think it will be powerful. The fact that it has to evolve twice, I think that's the main focus here. Because while it does make this deck, or whatever deck you run this in, a little slower, it also means that by the time Delphox comes into play, there's more than likely going to be lots of energy for it to take advantage of. So I think it's definitely worth it. Then, it gets a Break evolution, with the ability Flare Witch, which also has a respectable amount of bulk to it. 180 HP puts it on par with a good chunk of Mega Evolutions, so you gotta... not Mega Evolutions, Pokemon EXs, so you gotta take that into consideration. Flare Witch. Once during your turn, before you attack, you may search your deck for a Fire-type energy card and attach it to one of your Pokemon, shuffle your deck afterward. This, of course, directly benefits Delphox, and it directly benefits the Psystorm attack. Now, not only that, but you can use multiple Delphox Break abilities, Flare Witches to say, per turn. So that's about 4 energy you could get onto the board. Now that's a lot of cards to commit. That is a ton of cards to commit, but if you're revolving your deck entirely around Delphox Break, it could work out. This could go very quickly. I don't know how strong it necessarily is going to be, but I expect someone to bring one of these to a tournament. Then we have Diancie EX, which I think is one of the more underwhelming cards. With 150 HP for a Pokemon EX, that's low. That's worse than Alakazam EX. That's bad. It has the ability Sparkle Veil. As long as this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, any damage done to your Pokemon by an opponent's attack is reduced by 30. So there you go. It effectively gives it 180 HP off of the first attack. But it, of course, doesn't stay that way. Then you have Wonder Stage. If there is any Stadium card in play, this attack does 50 more damage. For one Fairy-type energy and one double colorless, you can do 110 as long as there's a Stadium in play. And with the last meta, Stadiums were pretty much everywhere. So there is a great likelihood that this could come into effect. The problem is, 110 damage on its own doesn't really pick up KOs. Attach a Muscle Band, it goes to 130. And that's kind of respectable. The idea behind this Diancie card is that because it takes less damage from attacks, the idea is to kind of outlast your opponents. I just don't know with how much damage Pokemon can sling out these days. I just don't know how well a bulky Pokemon like Diancie is going to fit in. But we'll have to see. I could be pleasantly surprised. Then we have Genesect EX. Genesect finally making a return into print. With 180 HP, it has the ability Drive Change. Once during your turn, before you attack, you may put a Pokemon tool card, attach this Pokemon into your hand. That's awesome. In a tool-heavy deck, this will let you switch between cards like the Fighting Fury Belt, like a Sparkling Robe, like a Muscle Band, like a Float Stone. You can get a lot of mileage out of Drive Change. And you can basically adjust your Genesect EX cards to whatever situation you currently need them to be doing. That in itself is incredibly powerful. Then it has this attack, Rapid Blaster, for 3 Metal-type energy. Discard as many Metal-type energy attached to this Pokemon as you like. This attack does 20 more damage for each energy card discarded this way. Comes off a base 100. All it takes is 4 more energy, and you can knock out another Genesect EX. Now, that is a bit inefficient, but, again, Metal-type decks revolve around the recycling of energy, so to speak. So there is usually a lot of energy in play with Metal types. So there's a lot that you can do with this. I think this is going to be a really cool card. I don't know if it will be meta-defining, but I kind of hope that it will be, because the last time Genesect took the stage, it took the stage for a long time with its good pal Virizion EX. I'm very excited to see it back. So then we have Glaceon EX, and this one intrigued me possibly more than any of the others. With 170 HP, we hit that solid mark right there, and then it has Second Bite. This attack does 10 more damage for each damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon. Could potentially be devastating, and towards the later damage stages of a Pokemon's life, this could get you a good revenge kill. But I don't think Second Bite is the reason why you would use this card. The reason why I think you should use this is Crystal Ray. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from Evolution Pokemon. So, you have Regice, which blocks the attacks of Pokemon EX. Then you have Glaceon EX, who blocks the attacks from Evolution Pokemon. If you combine these, there are a lot of decks that will just crumble due to not being able to inflict damage between the two of these. It's very, very debilitating to not be able to inflict any damage at all because of your deck's primary win condition. Evolution Pokemon and Pokemon EX tend to win games, it can't be denied. So I'm very interested to see if Glaceon EX will be run alongside Regice as a solid offensive stopper in Water-type decks. I mean, even in non-Water-type decks, because that's a double colorless energy, you could just use a Rainbow energy and still get mileage out of this Glaceon EX. We shall have to see. Then we have Kingdra EX. With 170 HP, we hit that magic mark. With Big Storm, 20 damage for 1 colorless, discard any stadium card in play. Nice utility attack. Having an attack that can do something neat like that in an off turn, definitely worth it. Then we have Dragon Tail. This attack does 30 more damage for each basic lightning type energy attached to this Pokemon, coming off a base 60. Now, the implication here is that you want to be attaching 3 lightning type energies to Dragon Trail, to get this. So that's 90 damage coming off of lightning, combined with 60 gives you 150, which is not bad in the slightest bit. Not only that, but you can attach more for an even more devastating effect. So this plays in just the same way that Raikou does, where having all of that lightning type energy turns it into an offensive monster. My prediction is that those kinds of decks will start running either a mix of water type energy, or they will start running rainbow type energy in order to capitalize on Kingdra's potential offensive abilities. It does slow down the deck a little to have to devote energy to an additional offensive Pokemon instead of just relying on 4 Raikous, but the advantage that Kingdra EX has is it is not weak to the ever-common fighting type. So you can use this as an effective stopper to rampaging fighting type Pokemon. I think that's where Kingdra's biggest niche lies. You've got Magnezone, which lets you attach energy freely from your hand. You've got Mega Manectric, which lets you attach it from your discard pile. There are a lot of ways to get this Kingdra EX set up, and I think it's going to be awesome just for that alone. So then we have a non-EX Pokemon and a non-Break Pokemon with Lucario with 110 HP, Vacuum Wave for 1 Metal-type energy. This attack's damage isn't affected by weakness or resistance, pretty good first turn attack, and Fight Alone. If you have fewer Pokemon in play than your opponent, this attack does 60 damage for each Pokemon fewer you have in play. The only way I see this Lucario working is if you run 4 copies of it and 4 copies of Riolu, and that's it. And you only play 1 at a time, because this will turn your opponent's full bench into something against them. 5 Pokemon on your opponent's bench when you have none is 300 damage. 330 potential damage is not something to be trifled with. In fact, you can even have a couple cards on the bench, and this will still do significant damage. If you've got 2 Pokemon on the bench, and your opponent has 5, this is still doing 210 damage for 2 energy. Take that into consideration. There is a lot that you can get out of this card. I think this is going to be a definite win condition on its own. Look out for this card. I have high hopes for it. Then we have Lugia Break. Flash of Destruction, discard 2 energy attached to this Pokemon. Coming off base 150, it's got 150 HP, so it knocks out itself, which is always something good to look out for. You can get this going with 2 double colorless energy cards, which is a lot to commit to one Pokemon, especially when you're going to be discarding it. But 150 damage, again, it knocks out Lugia EX itself. With a Muscle Band, it knocks out a lot of Pokemon EXs. It's something to consider. It is definitely a neat card, I just don't know how relevant it's going to be. But it does have potential, I'll say that much. Then we have Mega Alakazam EX. If you're running Alakazam EX, you're probably going to be running this guy. 210 HP. Nothing to scoff at. Absolutely nothing to scoff at. 210 HP is a lot for any Pokemon to take out. It has the attack Zen Force. This attack does 30 more damage for each damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon. This is what I was talking about earlier with synergizing perfectly with the bats. You can get so much damage off onto your opponent's active Pokemon, and you can do it by only playing Crobat, by only evolving Mega Alakazam EX, and only using Zen Force. This has so much potential and it synergizes so well with itself that I can't not see this card working out well. Not only that, but because it's Psychic weak, it knocks out itself. So in the mirror matchup, you can come out on top. I like this card a whole lot. And again, just like Alakazam EX, when you combine this with the bats, I think this is going to be a meta-defining card. It could be. It could not be. It could be total garbage, but I think I have high hopes for this card. Also, the full art. Very, very Dragon Ball Z-esque. So then we have Mega Altaria EX. 220 HP. More than Mega Alakazam EX, which is noteworthy. And it has the attack Mist Purge. If this Pokemon has any special energy attached to it, this attack, does 30 more damage and heal 30 more damage from each of your Pokemon. This is good. This is probably the reason why you would want to run Altaria EX. And you can actually see it in the design of this card. 1 Fairy-type energy, 1 double colorless energy, which is a special energy, which inherently cranks this up to 130. Slap a Muscle Band onto it, which will slow down your momentum, unless you can get that Spirit Link back. You got 150. 150 knocks out that Lugia break from before. I think the damage is a little low, but the utility is there. And especially if Mega Altaria EX is taking hits, and you have that special energy attached, you could stay in the game just courtesy of that heal alone. Honestly, I'm conflicted about this card. I think because of that inherent internal synergy, it's good. I just don't know if it's great or tournament worthy, but I would like to see it see some play. I think that could be very cool. So then we have Mega Audino EX, and this card is interesting. 220 HP, so puts it on par with Mega Altaria EX. It has the attack Magical Symphony for 3 colorless energy. If you played a supporter card from your hand during this turn, this attack does 50 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. So you're doing 110 to the active, and then 50 to the bench. 50 to the bench will knock out a Joltik. It comes close to knocking out a Pumpkaboo. I think it has potential. I don't know if it's the best card in the world, but this set seems to focus a lot on the chip damage that Phantom Force is brought to the table, and I like that. I like that it forces you to play a bit craftier. I think that the Fighting Fury Belt is going to be more important than ever, and I think this set, more than anything, is encouraging you to heal your Pokemon and to try and keep them around instead of letting them get sacked off for revenge-killing purposes. I think I like that a lot. I don't know if that's actually how the meta's gonna play out. I don't know if it's actually gonna become a popular trend, but I think it could be very neat to see. So then we've got Mew here. With a measly 50 HP, it has the ability Memories of Dawn. This Pokemon can use the attacks of any of your basic Pokemon in play. You still need the necessary energy to use each attack. With Encounter, search your deck for Pokemon, reveal it, and put it into your hand, shuffle your deck afterward. Internal synergy there in that you want to go looking for a Pokemon that has a good attack. So, back when Phantom Force first launched, Mew EX was a thing, and Mew EX had an attack, or an ability rather, that did the same thing that this does, where it could copy the attack of any other Pokemon in play. What I think this Mew is a Night March supporting Pokemon. You would run this in your Night March deck as an extra offensive tool, so that you have another Pokemon that can use Night March. The thing with that, though, is that Mew has low HP. Mew EX had pretty respectable HP, low for Pokemon EX, but it had more HP than a Night March Pokemon. Mew here does not. It just simply does not. It has less HP than Pumpkaboo does. The other utility I have this in my mind is that it would be good at using the attacks of your basic Pokemon EX. So that is to say, Altaria EX, not Mega Altaria EX. But again, its low HP is such a hindrance. I don't really see where this is supposed to come into play. Although it does have a free retreat cost. That might change my tune a little bit. A free retreat cost means that after you've gotten what you want out of it, you can get it out of play very easily. I just don't know if it'll survive long, and it can be picked off very easily with all these new passive effects going around. So I don't know if this is going to end up being good or not. Then we have Omastar Break, praise Lord Helix, with 140 HP, and Dangerous Tentacle. Once during a turn before you attack, you may switch one of your opponent's benched Pokemon EX with his or her active Pokemon. This is just a very annoying card. It's meant to bring your opponent's either setup Pokemon or their Pokemon EX granting abilities up to the front so that they can be KO'd easily in return. The problem I have with this is that as a break card, and as the final evolution of Omastar, who then has to go through Omanite, it's slow, and it'll take a while to get into effect. By then, your opponent might be on the attack with their Pokemon EX. I don't know. I'll have to see it in play to decide if it's good or not, but take note that this is a slow card, so we'll have to see. Then we have Regirock EX, who has 180 HP, so just a bit above par there, with the ability Regipower. The attacks of your fighting-type Pokemon, including Regirock EX, do 10 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So, between the Fighting Stadium, between the Strong Energy, and between Muscle Band and Fighting Fury Belt, you can get a ton, an absolute ton, of additional damage on your Fighting-type Pokemon's attacks. Add in Machamp, I think Machamp is still in Standard, who does this from the bench, but at the cost of having to be evolved from Machop, and each Fighting-type Pokemon will do a devastating amount of damage. It's actually just a little bit insane how much damage Fighting-type Pokemon are going to be capable of, especially with the addition of Regirock EX. And then it itself has the attack Bedrock Press for 3 Fighting-type energy. During your opponent's next turn, any damage done to this Pokemon by attacks is reduced by 20. Coming off a base 100 for 3 is fairly inefficient, but it does add some extra bulk to Regirock. I think the biggest thing you're going to see this Pokemon used for is sitting on the bench and further ensuring that your Fighting-type Pokemon get those KOs. Then we have another non-Pokemon EX in the form of Tyranitar with 160 HP with Raging Roar. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you may attach 1 Darkness Energy from your discard pile to this Pokemon for each prize card your opponent has taken. This is potentially, in the late game, one of the most momentum-shifting effects out there, as this can turn a near win from your opponent into a devastating onslaught from this Tyranitar, with the attack Dark Mountain, which notably costs 5 Darkness Energy. Discard the top 2 cards of your deck. This attack does 50 more damage for each supporter card discarded in this way. If you get lucky and toss 2 supporter cards, that's 250 damage. I am fairly certain that as it stands, only Wailord EX, without any tool cards attached to any other Pokemon, can resist this attack by itself. Assuming the best. 150 for 6, incredibly inefficient. But the idea is that you aren't directly attaching energy to Tyranitar. You're using it from the discard pile. You can also make use of Yveltal, and if you were to use this in the late game with Yveltal EX, oh, the damage would be insane. Absolutely insane. So, I don't know. It's a slow card, definitely, but I think it could be a very good late game cleaner. I'll have to see it in execution to make a final verdict, but I think I've said this before, I think it has potential. I think it could be really good, but it could also be really bad. So here's a card that intrigued me to no end. This is Umbreon EX with 170 HP. Its first attack for 1 colorless Veil of Darkness does 20 damage. Discard as many cards as you like from your hand, then draw that many cards. Potentially could change how your game is going. This is essentially a Professor Sycamore that you can still make use of your other supporter card with. Of course, you can't use these cards afterwards. Since this is an attack, you have to wait for your opponent to take a turn. But it is interesting. I like that it has an attack like that. But then the attack that we're all interested in. Endgame. 1 darkness, 1 double colorless energy. Endgame. 70 damage. If your opponent's Mega Evolution Pokemon is knocked out by damage from this attack, take 2 more prize cards. Do you realize what that's saying? Mega Evolution Pokemon already give up 2 prize cards. Take 2 more prize cards, you're getting 4 prize cards for 1 knockout. That is a severe game changer and a game winner potentially. The idea, I think the big thing with this Umbreon EX is to either set up KOs with Alakazam and Mega Alakazam EX and the bats, or to use Yveltal EX's powerful darkness attacks in order to weaken your opponent's Pokemon, and then bring in Umbreon EX to clean up and get as many prize cards as you can. Even if Umbreon EX goes down, and it will be hard to take down since it's got the average 170 HP, then you've still got 4 prize cards for 1 Pokemon! How do you argue with that? That's incredible! I've never seen a card like this before. This is definitely going to at least 1 tournament. Someone is going to try to win with this, I guarantee you that much. Especially with all the new Mega Evolution Pokemon they've added. So we are coming upon the end. And we have, for our viewing pleasure, White Kyurem with 130 HP and Burning Icicles. If this Pokemon has any Fire-type energy attached to it, this attack does 20 damage to 2 of your opponent's benched Pokemon, coming off at base 40 for 1 Water-type and a colorless energy, assuming that would end up being a Fire-type energy. That's okay. It's a little on the weaker side, but actually, if that did 30 damage to 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon, this would be one of the most played cards out there, because it could knock out Joltix on the bench of Night March. And then it would be a true terror. But 20 damage at best puts Combee at half HP. It puts Joltik to close knockout range. And it puts damage counters on additional Pokemon, which synergizes well with a lot of cards in this set. And then Blizzard Burn for 130. This Pokemon can't attack during your next turn. That's not so great. You do not want that kind of momentum halting in your deck. So then we have Zygarde EX with 190 HP, above and beyond for a Pokemon EX. It has Lance Pulse. If there is any Stadium card in play, this attack does 20 more damage. 40 for 1 fighting is not bad, especially with a Stadium card in play, which, with fighting type Pokemon, you generally want. If it's a fighting Stadium, this attack is now doing 60. Then you have Cellstorm, which actually comes off a base 60, heal 30 damage from this Pokemon, and Land's Wrath for 100. Now that would honestly be a little disappointing for a Pokemon EX, but there is a special trainer card, that comes out of the Fates Collide set that has to do with Zygarde. And you can take a quick look at some of the different... Oh wait, they're reprinting N? Oh, I didn't know N was coming back. Oh, that was a pleasant shock for me. I'm glad I took the time to scroll through these cards. Anyway, we have Power Memory. a Pokemon tool card that the Zygarde EX this card is attached to can also use the attack on this card. You still need the necessary energy. All cells burn. For 2 fighting types and 1 colorless energy, 200 damage. Discard 3 energy attached to this Pokemon. Let me point out how devastating this attack is. If you combine this with a Fighting Stadium, with a Machamp, with a Regirock EX, I don't think, and I might be doing some bad mental math here, but I think even Wailord EX gets knocked out by all that. Wailord EX might be the only Pokemon that can take this attack. The downside, of course, is that you are discarding 3 energy attached to Zygarde EX, but there are a lot of ways to set up energy onto a Pokemon. So just as easily as you lose that energy, you can then get it back. The main idea here would be to use Zygarde EX to knock out your opponent's biggest, baddest Pokemon, and then, say, bring in a Pokemon like Manectric EX in order to bring energy back onto the Zygarde EX and power it up once again in order to knock out another big, bad Pokemon your opponent has. The big thing with Zygarde EX's power memory, is that it knocks out itself. So you can knock out your opponent's Zygarde EX, and because of the fact that it will have that tool card attached to it, more likely than not, it will not have the HP from Fighting Fury Belt, which means that it will go down. This is a very interesting card. I can't predict how much play this is going to see, since you can remove one of its attacks with a Startling Megaphone, or with a Pokemon Tool Scrapper. But I think it's definitely interesting. I think it's so interesting that I want someone to try to win with it. I want it more than anything. But we'll have to see. So, this has been some predictions and speculation about the new rare Pokemon cards from Fates Collide. If you have been speculating along with me, then kudos to you. I'm very interested to read your thoughts, and if you have enjoyed this video, then please let me know with a like and a comment down below telling me just how much fun you've had, and I will see you guys next time when we return to the Pokemon Trading Card Game online with some of these new cards to play with, so that we can take them for a test spin. Until then, be sure to take care and have a good one, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye!